Step into the super crowd, where dreams take flight. Learn to invest like a pro, make your future bright. Impact investing, changing the game. Crowdfund the world, it'll never be the same. SuperCrowdHour, come join the ride. Change the world with us, we're on your side. SuperCrowdHour, come join the ride. Change the world with us, we're on your side.
Hello everyone, welcome to the CfPA webinar for May and the SuperCrowdHour. I'm your host today, Devin Thorpe. I am really excited about this topic today. We're going to be talking about how to file your Form CAR for free yourself. You know, I didn't even know, honestly, until 6 months ago that a company could access Edgar and do its own filings. I've been using Edgar for 30 years and always thought attorneys had to do it. I recently filed some of my own filings. I'm excited to share with you a step-by-step guide to how you do it. So stick around. This is going to be a great conversation today. We're really happy to share this information. I just think it's really important information. You know, the founders are required to file an annual report, and that's what we're talking about, right? Primarily is how to file the annual report. But a lot of what we'll talk about is actually relevant for all of your regulatory filings. So this is kind of an exciting thing in the world of crowdfunding. To be able to do it yourself instead of paying someone to do it. I want to thank Chandon, our producer, for his great work in helping us pull this off. He's a great asset and a resource. We'll be talking about money things today. This is not legal advice. It's not investment advice. We're educating you. We don't know your circumstance, your situation. You need to get your own counsel. I want to invite you to, if you're not already a member of the Super Crowd, you can join for free at Superpowers for Good, or just scan this QR code. Again, superpowers4good.com, or scan that QR code that you see on the screen, and you can become a member of the Super Crowd, absolutely free. I also, for those of you who are members of the Super Crowd especially, but aren't yet members of the Crowdfunding Professional Association, I invite you to join the Crowdfunding Professional Association. So visit cfpa.org/join us, that's cfpa.org/join us, or scan the QR code there. You can join for just $10 a month. We're streaming this via television and YouTube and all kinds of places, but if you have questions, you can submit your questions to by using this QR code. And so if you are, in fact, sitting at your television watching this, I encourage you to grab your telephone and scan that QR code right now, so that when you have a question, you're not looking for that QR code and looking for it, or type in 4sc.fund/question. I've written some books, a couple of them that may be helpful and relevant to you. Crowdfunding Made Simple. So if you are thinking about crowdfunding in the future, not only is the stuff we'll talk about today helpful and important, you'll get a lot of great information that is sort of a preamble to today's session in Crowdfunding Made Simple. if you're not an entrepreneur, I hope you're an investor. And let's remember, everyone can invest, and you can start making impact investing a reality in your life. That is, investing to make a difference in the world. You can do it with as little as $10. So I invite you to read that book as well. I also want to invite you to join us for SuperCrowd 26 featuring Purpose Built 100. And if you have not yet applied to be in the Purpose Built 100, I encourage you to check it out at purposebuilt100.com. The Purpose Built 100 is a ranking, a listing of the 100 fastest growing companies in America with a purpose, with a social impact, with a clear stated mission. So if you are a company like that, I encourage you to apply. Think Inc. 500 meets impact investing. With that, we're getting really close here. I want to thank and acknowledge our sponsors. We couldn't do this without them. So forgive me, we'll play a little video here as an homage to our sponsors, without whom, again, we couldn't do this.
Welcome to Cineblock, a film investing platform for the movie lovers, risk takers, and enterprising filmmakers. With a click of a button, anyone can now bankroll the hottest up-and-coming films or shows as a real movie producer through investing at cineblockfilms.com.
We're grateful for the support we've received from Move the Needle with Rob Kaplan and Ridgecrest Herbals, a certified B Corp. We appreciate our co-hosts.
Prepare to be inspired by Devin Thorpe, a powerhouse in impact journalism and social good advocacy. This best-selling author hosts the acclaimed Superpowers for Good TV show featuring global changemakers like Bill Gates. With a readership of over 2 million, his 500-plus Forbes articles have shaped the dialogue on purpose-driven leadership and crowdfunding innovation. A sought-after speaker from the United Nations to Johnson & Johnson, Devin's unique blend of expertise as a former CFO and investment banker fuels his captivating presentations. Please welcome the dynamic and visionary Devin Thorpe, here to empower us all to harness our superpowers for good.
All righty, let's get to work. We've got some really important information to cover today. We're going to get a little bit technical, but I invite you to hang with us. If you think you might ever do a crowdfunding offering, even if you haven't done one yet, you're going to need to know how to file your annual report. And doing that yourself can save you hundreds and hundreds of dollars. First off, step one, you've got to set up your Edgar account. And it's possible that the portal is controlling that. You may or may not have a dialogue with your portal or with your attorney who originally had access. So this may be a little bit tricky. This could be. In fact, I expect that setting up your Edgar Access account will be the hardest part. It's not super hard, right? But let's be clear. This is easily the hardest part of the whole process, right here at the beginning. So you start by visiting filermanagement.edgarfiling.sec.gov. And that link is, we'll put that link in the notes for today. I encourage you to check that out. But on the Superpowers for Good website, you'll see our notes with this webinar, and you can check out that link is there. But filermanagement.edgarfiling.sec.gov. Holy Toledo. And then down, as you scroll down that page, you'll see there's a login, a sign in with login.gov. So even if you don't have a login.gov account yet, you'll need to sign in there. This is a relatively new step. And so even if you have Edgar access from before, in a past life, you'll probably need to set up the new login.gov access. If you had Edgar access before, setting this up should be easier than if you didn't have Edgar access before. But unless you've logged in the last 12 to 15 months with Edgar, you'll need to set up the new login.gov access. It's actually a good innovation. The login.gov gives you kind of a universal government access with the federal government, and that's a handy thing, actually. I think it's a good innovation. So whether you're doing trademarks, patents, SEC filings, you're now kind of coming in through that common door. So next you've got to, now that you're on the login.gov account, you've got to create your account there. If you have an account already, just sign in. It's important that you use a personal email account. It can be a Gmail account, but it can't be or shouldn't be an info at, contact at, support at kind of email address, right? It needs to be Devin at kind of email address. And then there is a language option. You've got to accept the rules, etc., etc. Nothing too tricky there. And then once you are past that, you can do step 3. You can confirm and create your email. So you'll get an email from login.gov after you've entered all of that stuff. You can confirm your email in the very conventional way. This is a step you're probably familiar with by now. And then you can click continue. And this is going to take you on to the opportunity to do your multi-factor authentication. And I think it will force you to set up at least one method. I would encourage you to also set up a backup method. These should be familiar steps. I don't think there's anything unusual in this step here. You're probably very familiar with the multi-factor, the 2FA. Goes by a variety of acronyms. I remember having one of my CfPA colleagues explain to me how a Google Authenticator app worked a few years back. It was very confusing for someone with gray hair, but it's pretty routine for all of us now. So that should not be a confusing step. Then it's going to push you back to Edgar, and you'll complete your process there. And here's the trick. The final step there will involve them manually reviewing your application, if you will, for an Edgar account. And that manual review will take about a week. So you've got to be so diligent about reading your doggone email, right? And as one who sends a lot of email, I know people aren't reading email like they used to. Not that they ever read it with diligence. Back in the 90s, we all read our email, right? So some of you aren't even old enough to have been alive or ever have received an email in the 90s. Back in the 90s, we read our email, right? It was so exciting. It was like getting a letter in the mail today, right? Oh my gosh, someone sent me an email. It's so exciting. Oh, it's from, anyway. People don't read their email. That could be the biggest challenge in this first step of setting up your account is spotting that SEC email when it comes in. They're not going to email you 6 times. They're going to email you exactly once, telling you you're ready to log into your account. And then, if you don't do it, you get removed. And you have to start over. And if you have to start over, I'm not sure how quickly they're going to reinstate you if you don't do it quickly. So, and one last note, they may require you to set up 2 people, depending on your situation. But if you have more than 1 shareholder, and there are a lot of companies who do crowdfunding who don't, right? If you issue debt or a SAFE, and you're a sole proprietor before that, or you're the only shareholder before that, there are a lot of companies that may not have more than 1 shareholder. You can get away with just having 1. Everyone else has to have 2. Now, look, let's get in. Let's assume that email has come. You've logged into your Edgar account through login.gov, and you are ready to go. I suggest that you use the week between to actually prepare your annual report, your Form CAR. I'm going to walk you through a few key steps here. Let me say that there are kind of 3 ways to think about doing your Form CAR. There's a real meaningful parallel to filing a tax return, right? Very few people prepare a corporate tax return themselves. Most people hire it done. And that's the same with these kinds of filings. Almost everyone who is filing with the SEC pays someone else to do it. They pay someone to prepare the documents and submit them. But you can do it all yourself. There is one intermediate step, and that is our friends at Crowdfund Capital Advisors have created a new tool at carfiling.com. That's CAR, like car, filing.com, where they've created a software that you can use to prepare or to file, only to file your CAR. So there are these 3 models now where you could use a paid professional, an attorney most of the time, to do this work. You can do it yourself, or you can get the software at carfiling.com. And if you visit our website today at superpowersforgood.com, you get a 10% discount on that if you want. But let's walk through drafting the document. You've got a week to kill anyway. Let's walk through that. So the first step is to take all of the discussion of the business from your Form C. Copy it over to the Form CAR document, which at this point I'm talking about creating a blank document, a Word document, or a Google Doc, or something like that. You're just going to copy the text from your Form C about the business. If it's about the business, it should properly be in the Form CAR, the annual report. You want to then update it. Read it carefully to look for things that are out of date and update them. You want to think about, step back, rack your brain, check your email, look at your calendar. What has happened in the business since you drafted and filed the Form C, so that you provide an updated situation. So that should include copying over all the risk factors, but it doesn't need to include any reference to the offering. So you can ignore all the information about the raise that you were proposing in the Form C. You may mention as an update that you completed the offering. That would certainly be news. You raised some capital. That needs to go in the report. However you raised it, debt, equity, safe, convertible note, whatever that was, you need to describe that transaction as a bit of news. It's kind of obvious news, but you need to report it nonetheless. Then you need to have financial statements. Generally speaking, people look at that and say you've got to have a balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement, and a statement of changes in equity so that you have a complete set of financials at a minimum. The good news is you don't have to have them reviewed or audited. Even if you had to have them reviewed or audited for your offering, you don't have to have them reviewed or audited for your annual report, unless there's a caveat here. If you had to have your financial statements reviewed or audited for another purpose, so that you in fact have reviewed or audited financial statements available to you for the year that you're filing the annual report for, then you need to use those reviewed or audited financial statements, not a different set. You need to use that set. But if you don't have someone else, a bank loan or a big investor that has forced that step on you, and so you don't have it, you don't need to do it. You just provide a certified, and you'll need to put in your own certification as the CEO, as the principal officer, that these are correct. Once you have it all ready to go, I encourage you to send it to your attorney for a review. You're not required, the SEC does not require that step. It's just good business practice, right? That's the best way to handle this. But if you are drafting and the attorney is reviewing, that's going to cut the legal cost down dramatically from having the attorney prepare that document for you. It'll reduce the back and forth, etc. So it's the best practice. Again, though, as far as I can tell, this is not legal advice. Talk to your attorney. I don't think the SEC doesn't require you to have your attorney involved. Okay, so now we're ready to start talking about the process of filing the Form CAR. The reality is, this is really the easy part, and yet this is precisely the part that I didn't think ordinary Joe Blows like you and me could do this. I thought you had to be an attorney or a professional wizard of filing 10Ks and such to do this work. Not so. Anyone can do it. The key, the hardest part, the very hardest part was the first thing we did, right? We talked through how you set up your account with the SEC and then connect that through login.gov, that whole process, then wait for the email and get it. That process, that's the hard part. Preparing the Form C, not as hard, really, right? It's preparing the form, the CAR, not as hard. You just copy the Form C, do a little work to it, add the financial statements. So it's really not that bad getting to this point, and now this point is kind of the easy part. You've done all the work, so I'll walk you through this. I'll try to be a little bit deliberate and thoughtful, but the reality is we're on the downhill slide now. This is the easy part. Okay, and on the easy part, the hardest part is the landing page. When you log in to the SEC Edgar, filing system, you are going to be presented with a page that will blow your mind. There is a novel's worth of dense text on the landing page, and there are about 100 different links that you can click from that page, and it feels like, holy Toledo, I can't possibly make Edgar work. It's absolutely impossible. Here's the thing. It takes a little bit of a Zen moment, perhaps. Take a deep breath, look at the left-hand side of the screen, and click on the menu option for Regulation Crowdfunding. When you do that, you enter a whole new world, it seems, where suddenly the novel's worth of text is gone, the 75 or 100 different links and buttons options are gone. We're now in a world that suddenly makes sense. So that first page is the difficult part, the key. Let me hit this key again so that you don't miss it. Deep breath. Look for Regulation Crowdfunding in the left-hand menu and click that. Okay, so now we're on to step 2. Here we're going to enter your filer information. And the biggest challenge with the filer information is getting the CCC, right? You're going to need your CIK number and your CCC. The CIK number is public. So if you pull up your Form C on the Edgar database website, for instance, it's not hard to find your CIK. That's pretty easy to find, but the CCC is a little bit more difficult. It's not impossible to find, it's just challenging to find. That was one of those moments of pause for me as I was doing this process for myself. That was another challenge. It wasn't as emotionally difficult as finding Regulation Crowdfunding on the left side of the first page. That was really the moment where I thought, holy crap, I can't possibly pull this off. But then I found Regulation Crowdfunding, clicked on that, and then we entered this more calm world where it was a rational, reasonable kind of thing. So the CCC is kind of a password for your company. So in Edgar, after you're logged in and you're on the filer management dashboard, you can click under your My Accounts section. As an account administrator, you can access your active 8-character CCC. It's kind of a company code. And grab your CCC. It's pretty visible. It's right there in the same system we're using. But you'll want to have grabbed that actually before you get to this page where you're entering your filer information. But after you get the CCC entered, you're going to want to enter the period for which you're reporting. And I would point out that that is challenging, more challenging than it sounds. The honest truth is, my attorney filed my Form CAR for me 2 years ago. And she entered the wrong date. So my Form CAR, my annual report, the only one I was required to file, was filed, and it was filed on time. But because she entered the date she filed as the period date, it showed up as being the date, the period ending April 8th, 2024, instead of December 31st, 2023. So for years, I've been showing up without ever receiving a notification from anyone as a non-complier because I had not filed properly a Form CAR, an annual report for 2023. It was the only one I was required to do, never did it. So I had to go back. That's how I had to learn how to do all this stuff. I had to go back, download the Form CAR that my attorney had helped me prepare, and then I had to upload it again, following this whole system as a new filing for the correct period. So be very careful when you're entering dates, because you will be asked for the date for both today, the filing date, and the date for the period. So make sure that you get those correct. If you swap them, you will be forever sorry. You'll need to enter contact information, etc., etc. That's a little bit kludgy, not a lot. I remember wondering if it had worked, and it kind of didn't. But you can navigate that. You can survive that process and get it done. So after you get that information, and now you're ready to put the additional information in. So you're going to put, this is where on your issuer information. So you'll put the legal name of your business, right, is going to go in that spot. And you'll put some of the information like the state of incorporation, the legal status, and the incorporation date. None of this is really hard, but it may require you to look it up somewhere, right? You may need to pull up your original articles of incorporation, that kind of thing. It's tricky, but there's no rocket science here. You're going to need to find the physical address, things. Most of the stuff is stuff that your company website. It will ask about a co-issuer. And if you have an SPV involved in your offering, that may be a situation where it's going to be, it's certainly going to be trickier, right? You're going to have to provide the information for the law, I think, calls them crowdfunding vehicles. Customarily, they're known as SPVs or special purpose vehicles. Some of you are thinking, what on earth is that? How do I know if I have one? If you raised a form of equity on WeFunder, you do. And a lot of you are in that camp. On other platforms and portals, you may or may not have an SPV, you'll need to check that out. But an SPV is common. It's common when you're raising equity. So if you raise debt on Honeycomb Credit, SMBX, Climatize, you do not have an SPV or a CFV. You may have set up a project entity. Make sure that you're using that entity as the issuer and not the parent company if the project entity was the issuer, but you still don't have a co-issuer. It'll just be the entity that did the raise. So after that, now we're getting into the meat of the offering. So the SEC form requires you to enter some key information from the financial statements. So it'll ask for the number of employees and some key financial data like revenue and net income and some of that kind of stuff. Some asset figures like total assets, a few things. So it's half a dozen numbers, usually for the current fiscal year end and the same data for the prior fiscal year end, so people can see the change right there on the page. I encourage you to use commas if you're using a big number, and of course a negative sign, a minus sign if you had losses when you report that. And again, this is actually pretty straightforward. I found this process not especially difficult to navigate. Now, the Documents tab is a little bit tricky. Not terrible. Remember, I still believe, having done all of this myself, the hardest part was getting the SEC account set up. So if you've done that, the rest you can do. Know with confidence you can get this done. This page is a little bit tricky. So what you're going to do on this page is it'll have an add document button, and it's not as intuitive as I wish it were. Right? But you need to click the Add Document button to start, even though the order of operation appears that you're going to enter some sort of information first, because the button is below that field. It will populate that field with the name of the file you're uploading after you upload it. So you got to go find the document. It is important at this stage to note a couple of things. The most important is understanding that the document needs to be named in a specific conventional way. Now, there is no guidance on what the name should be, only the characters that you can use. I've long gotten in the habit of using a variety of special characters and spaces in file names. Back in the olden days, you couldn't do that. And SEC Edgar kind of still operates in the olden days. Think 1990s conventions. And so your file name cannot have spaces or special characters. The only special character allowed is an underscore. So I think it's a good idea to give your file, your name of the document, a very specific, clear name that you and others would recognize, so that people who look at the list of documents attached to the filing know what's what. You can upload many documents. I don't know if it's unlimited. I have certainly seen filings with 20 attachments, so I know you can put that many in. I am a big fan of putting all of the stuff in one big PDF, right? You can put the narrative, connect it to your financial statements, put it all in one document. I'm a big fan of that, but that's not required. If you want to have your business narrative in one document, your risk factors in another, your income statement in another, your balance sheet in another, your cash flow statement, your equity change document in another, you can do that. And you can have 6 documents and you can upload them all. But each one, no special characters, only letters and numbers in the name. And if you don't name it correctly, you won't get a very clear error message. It's just kind of not going to work. That's one of the glitches that really threw me. It took me a long time to figure out what was going on because I did it wrong, right? Did it wrong. So be sure to use that conventional naming option. Then at the end, if it'll check for errors, and I don't really know what it's checking. It's an automated check. I mean, I guess that it's not corrupt. I don't know. The name is correct. Maybe that's all it's checking, is that it's a name that qualifies, which has no spaces, no special characters. You get an error box that says 0. Then you can click on validate the document. And if it passes, then you can just click next and keep going, adding more documents until you're done. So let's see. The next process is just the signatures. And this is as easy as it sounds, right? You're going to, you don't need to actually do anything fancy with the signature. This is one of those where you're just going to type in your name as your signature. It's very old school. There are rare circumstances when you're going to have your a colleague log in and sign it as well. I don't recall what triggers that, but most of you who are going to do this yourself will not be in that boat. So then you've got to watch for that confirmation email. And that confirmation email is probably going to take 2 to 10 minutes. And it's going to say, I think there might be 2 confirmation emails. One might say, we've got a submission. And then you're going to get one that says your submission has been accepted. It's subjected only to an automated review. No humans are reviewing it. And I don't think they're using any fancy AI to review it. There really isn't a review process for these documents. There's only the screening to ensure that you are doing it right. So, from a tech standpoint, it's a pure tech screening. Is it right? So when you get to that point, you're now ready to file your Form CTR. And my attorney didn't file this for me. I don't know that the world would have ended if she hadn't. But there is a form that you should file after you file your annual report. Most people who file an annual report will only have to do it one time. If you have lots and lots of shareholders, you will have to do it up to 3 times. But if you only have it once, if you only have 300 or fewer shareholders, then you can just do it one time. So Brandon, you're asking, if a founder realizes they already missed a filing deadline, what should they do to minimize the damage and rebuild trust? Okay, so the first thing is you got to file. File as quickly as possible. So if you are watching today and you had an offering close where you raised any money last year, in 2025, you should have filed by April 30th. And if you didn't, okay, then you're naughty. You're on the naughty list. And the SEC cares about this, but the SEC will never, they're adamantly opposed. I'm not sure why, but they're adamantly opposed to this craziness of telling you you're out of compliance. I don't get the logic, but they're not going to send you an email, even though they have your email, they know who you are, they know you're not doing it, and they care. They're not going to tell. That said, because they're not going to do anything, the penalties are kind of low. There's no financial penalty, but you are out of compliance. The biggest penalty is that you shouldn't be allowed to do another Reg CF offering. It's conceivable that that test, that screening could be overlooked and you might sneak one in. I don't know. But most portals have attorneys that are checking that kind of stuff, and they'll force you to do it at some point if you don't. And of course, the fact that you are out of compliance is something that you'll probably need to disclose permanently, forever, or at least in your next offering, that you filed your Form CAR, your annual report, late. So the earlier you do it, the less embarrassing that is when you're doing another raise and you're disclosing in your Form C, your new Form C, or in some other offering document that you did file your CAR late. So, do it as soon as you discover how to do it and get into compliance. Do it then. So if you are out of compliance today, and many of the people who are watching will be in that boat, it's okay. File away. Sign up today. Go to Edgar and start this process. Get your login.gov set up and get connected so you can get the ball rolling on getting filed. Okay, so now let's talk about filing the CTR, the termination letter. I think this is technically required. I don't see a lot of people doing it. The world probably won't end. It's free and easy, and I think it adds a clear layer of protection for you because it signals to the SEC and your shareholders that you're done, right? No one can misread or misunderstand that you're going to keep filing. So I think this is a good thing to do, and so I encourage you to do it. And it's a quick 15 minutes start to finish, right? So you're going to log into Edgar. You're going to click again on Regulation Crowdfunding on the scary page, and you're going to go through really the same workflow that you did with the CAR, the annual report, but it's going to be a little bit abbreviated for the CTR, right? Because you're not going to enter financial data or anything like that. You're just going to upload a letter that you've written saying that you are done reporting, that you have complied with your obligation. So you log in, you enter your filer information. Again, it's, you got to kind of put in the stuff about, your CIK and the CCC and your names and all of that stuff that we did before. And then you're going to upload your termination letter. And again, you got to remember that you've got to name it with the underscores, the only allowed special character, and then, letters and numbers. Make sure that you select the type. This is a CTR. Anytime you're asked for the filing you're doing, you want to make sure that you indicate the CTR. You'll validate the document like you did with your documents before. You'll be familiar with it when you're doing this process again. So you're going to start to feel like a real pro after you've done the CAR and the CTR. You're going to feel like, oh yeah, this is groovy. I could do this over and over. And maybe you will. Maybe you'll, if you do more Reg CF offerings, maybe you'll always choose to do this work yourself or in-house, so that you avoid the fees of paying other people lots of money to do it. Again, you got to go through the final step is entering the virtual signatures. It's kind of an old school process. It's not heavy or difficult. And then again, you'll watch for that accepted email that's going to tell you that your offering has been, your filing is not only received but accepted. And once it's accepted, you are done. And this, when I say you're done with the SEC for life until you do another offering. And if you don't ever do another regulation crowdfunding offering, and about 90% of the people who do Reg CF offerings don't do a second. Only about 10% do a second offering. So if you're in that 90% where you do one and you're done, this CTR ends your relationship with the SEC, which is pretty great. So at this point, I have time to take some questions if you have any. I'm thrilled that there's a few minutes left at the end of this session. But we're happy to. Looks like there's a question here from Andrew. With AI and automation rapidly evolving, how do you see compliance and Reg CF reporting changing over the next few years for founders? Let me give you a tip. To file my own, to learn how to do this so I can share it with you, I used AI to help me figure this out. I tried ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. And I'm frankly a big fan of all three and use them differently. But using Gemini in pro mode, I discovered that I was getting the best answers. Because of the three, it was the only one that answered correctly how to set up the account. So I used Gemini for that. But I want to be really clear that the answer to Andrew's question is that AI makes compliance easier and will continue to make compliance easier. I think the CAR filing system that I talked about, that our friends at Crowdfund Capital Advisors offer, that service, I think, incorporates some AI, right, in its process, and it's an AI-derived tool, I believe. Don't know, I didn't write the code. That is making these processes easier. So I encourage you to, take comfort in the reality that AI is going to make this whole process easier. I want to reiterate, as we wrap up here, that you can do this. I know it sounds a little scary. There is more information on the Superpowers for Good website today. The link there for doing all of these filings is there. You can see the recording of this session if you want to replay it there. The recording, I think, will also be available on the CfPA Eco, where you'll be able to watch the YouTube recording there. It's also going to be available on YouTube. So there are lots of ways to watch this going forward and to get more information. But the key takeaway I have for you is to remember that you can do this. This is not out of the realm of possibility for really anyone. Right? If I can do it without the benefit of having me tell me how to do it, and you have that benefit, I'm comfortable that whether you are a food truck operator, chef, or a tech entrepreneur, whatever you're doing, you can do this. You can do this, and you could save hundreds of dollars doing the filing yourself. And if you are doing the preparation of the document yourself, it might be thousands of dollars that you're saving. Yeah. And for issuers who've raised relatively small amounts of money, if you raise $30,000, $50,000 on Honeycomb Credit or SMBX, or even on WeFunder, you may well be in a situation where you say to yourself, I don't want to spend $1,000, $2,000 out of those proceeds 6 months, a year later, when money's scarce and tight again, to do these filings. This is your solution, right? Doing it yourself, this is your solution. I do want to invite you all to join us for the SuperCrowd 26. Let me play a little video to invite you to that. I really hope that you will join us for that, because it's going to be a fun event. Oh, wait, I thought I had it there, and I don't. Never mind. But let me tell you a little bit about SuperCrowd 26. It's going to be a 3-day event that will be really a fun event. We're going to have a lot of great content there for you. So 3 full days. We'll be streaming 9 hours of fresh content every day for 3 days, and we'll be featuring throughout the 3 days profiles of the 100 fastest growing purpose-driven companies in America, and we will rank them as to find the fastest growing purpose-driven company in America at SuperCrowd 26. This is going to be a lot of fun. You don't want to miss a minute of that. So I encourage you to register today at supercrowd26.com. There are free registration options if you just want to watch. But if you are an entrepreneur and you want to meet some of these fast-growing company entrepreneurs, you can meet them in our virtual networking spaces. So I encourage you to sign up for the networking, the executive access passes. There's also an option to get a Founder Circle ticket, which will include a hardbound book with the profiles of all 100 winning companies, plus a lot of rich information about them. So it's going to be a great event. We invite you to join us for that. With that, I thank you very much for being with us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the SuperCrowd Hour next month.